Hello, this is Mike at Gamefromscratch, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Godot game engine. Specifically, we're going to look at creating levels using Tilemaps. Tilemap is simply a map made up of tiles. I guess you could have probably guessed that by the name. More specifically, you generally have one or more sprite sheets. Each sprite has little bits of a level in it. Those bits of the level are then reused to paint a level, generally in a 2D grid. Though it doesn't have to be, you could have an isometric tile map, for example. You could have a hexagonal text map, for example. But today we're going to be just dealing with a straight 2D hex map. You can work in isometric. It does add some complication to the fact. So in order to get started, we are actually going to need tiles. Tile map, as I said, it's just a 2D graphic containing the think about it as Lego, or the building blocks that you're going to paint your level with. They don't have to be, but they're often the same size. We're going to use the same size. In this case, we're going to use a 32 by 32 pixel tile. And I think the sprite sheet's about 512 by 512, so then it's God, that math shouldn't be that hard. It's about a dozen by a dozen graphics that go to make up your scene. First thing you're going to need is to actually get one. You need to create one yourself. Use one from wherever. In my case, I'm actually going to grab one from the free website, opengameart.org. You need to sign up, but that's it. Otherwise, it's completely free. And I'm using this tile set right here. Let's see, this is it. Open. No, that's not it. That's Kenny's. Where did it go? Here we go. So it's actually 32 by 32 pixel chunks of reusable tileable. That's where the name comes from, is because one can blend into the next like this. Thus the word tile. Think like flooring tiles in your bathroom or your kitchen, or the backsplash of your kitchen, or whatever. How they're designed and they have a pattern that blends into the one beside them. That's the basic concept we're going with here. They're usable. That you can paint with them because certain surfaces will blend with other surfaces. So if I put this tile next to this tile, you get this nice smooth transition, and then this tile beside it, you get another nice transition again. So that's where the tile part of tileable comes from. But this is it. It's just a simple power of 2, 32 by 32 chunk image. And that's what we're going to go ahead and use. So again, I just grabbed it from OpenGameArt. You can use whatever you want. The only thing I keep in mind here today is I'm going to make the assumption that all of your tiles have a transparent background, so I don't have to do any color masking. It's quite common for tile sets to actually use something like, say, fuchsia as the background color, and then you mask that out. I don't know why anybody does that anymore. The world of transparency is here and very well established. That used to be the way things were done back in the Stone Age. Some people stick to it. I don't get why, because now you can't use whatever that color is in your color palette, and it can create some kind of insidious graphic bugs as a result. But this is the guy you want, or whatever you want. Just make sure that there's no spacing between your tiles, like what we saw here. Kenny from Kenny NL creates this nice tile sheet set, huge sets of them. Unfortunately, he's got a spacing in between each tile, and that creates a bit of a pain in the ass. You can go ahead and do it. It's just you're going to have to do some extra math in your head while figuring out where the tiles end and begin. You'll see that shortly. All right, so let's fire up Godot. I actually already have. I'm at the project management screen here, and let's just go ahead and create a new project. In projects folder, I will call this. As you can see, I've done a couple play runs of this, but so we'll call this one Tilemap 3, and click OK. Now I'm going to warn you up front. The Godot engine is quite powerful in handling tile maps. It's also quite buggy. Some of this might come down to user error. Some of it might just be buggy. I'm not really sure specifically where things go wrong, but I have had some issues with exporting of tile maps. This process might not be as smooth as I want it to be, and I'm not entirely sure that that's my fault. It might be. I might be making a mistake here. Just expect that we might run into a couple of hiccups, unfortunately. Also, this process isn't as smooth as I'd like to be. If anyone from the Godot team is listening, this is a process that really could use some automation, especially the importing and creating of the tiles part, which is what we're about to see now. In order to create a tile map, basically you create a new scene and then export it as a tile map. So we're going to ultimately need two scenes for this project. Our tile map scene and then our game itself. So let's go ahead first off and we'll create our tile map scenes. Let's switch over to 2D. You may notice I've upgraded to the current development version of 1.1. There's been a bit of a facelift since the previous releases, but it's still functionally all the same thing. You'll find as I do these videos, I'll pretty much keep with the most current version. So if things change slightly in look and feel from when I started these videos, that's why. All right, so first things first, we need our initial scene. We've already actually got it. So now in that scene, our root level, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to create a node. Just a parent container. And the next thing is, and this is going to seem a little clunky, we're going to create a graphic for our tile. So we're going to bring in, first off, let's import our tile map. Also, if you're listening to devs, I would love to see the ability to quick jump to recognize folders, such as desktop. Users, mic, desktop, and that's our tile sheet right there. We'll be messy and just throw it in our root, like so, and import it. All right, so that imported our graphic in. You go over to the file system, you can see it right there. Now let's use it. And what you do is, for importing your tiles, you basically create a sprite for each entry. So let me just go ahead and do that right now. Our first guy is going to be a sprite. So every single tile is going to have a unique name. It could be sprite, sprite 1, sprite 2, sprite 3. But that's kind of awful. So I'm going to use the slightly less awful but equally awful tile 1. So this is our very first tile. We'll set it to our texture. So we just load up our texture that we imported here, like so. Let me zoom out so you can see all that guy. Now what we want to actually do is just use a region of it. So region on, and then you just specify the dimensions. As I said, it's made up of 32 by 32 chunks. So if we want the top left tile, let me just bring up the tile set here. If we want this tile here, it's at 0, 0, and we want 32 and 32 for width and height. So let's bring in our first tile. I'm only going to bring in a couple of these because it's a very slow process for the most part. So there's our dimensions, and now you go look at our tile, and you'll see that is that, right? So there's our first tile. Bring it in. Now the next thing you want to use, and we haven't used this a whole lot in the past, but when you're working with tiles, especially if a fixed size like this, snapping is your friend. We're going to want to arrange these in this grid. You don't really have to, but it makes things nice and smooth. So let's go ahead and we're going to turn on snapping. First thing we need to do is configure it. And we want to snap in 32 by 32 increments, like so. And then finally, we go back here and we turn snapping on. So now when I move this guy, it will move in 32 by 32 tile chunks. Very handy. All right, so that guy was created. Now, the next part's all conditional on you. If you're going to be using physics or collisions, you're going to want to do this part. If you're not, then you don't. But now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to define collision details for this tile. So as you can see, the character can probably only walk in this portion right here. So we need to mask that out accordingly. Oops. Okay, good. Now, this goes back to our physics lesson before. We're basically going to define a physics entry for each tile. We've already done this in the previous tutorial, so I'm not going to cover the details of exactly how I'm doing things. So if what I'm about to do is very foreign to you, go back and watch the previous tutorial. It will cover it nicely for you. But since we don't move, but we want physics to occur, we are going to create a static body, like so. And then all we do for the static body is then in turn, we add another, and that's a collision polygon 2D. And this is your boundary for it. So once again, once you got that guy in, you come in here and you can now edit it. And since our snapping is still turned on, I should just be able to click each corner and it'll automatically do my four corners like that. So I've got a nice little square now. Now I'm going to want to cut out this portion right here. In order to do that, I'm actually going to have to come up here and turn snapping off, because otherwise I'll only be able to select the four corners, like anything that's at 32 by 32, for example. And now all I want to do is come in and I want to click here. Oh, wait, is it control click? Yeah, control click here. Control click here. And then we'll just grab this corner here and drag it in like so. Actually, oops, undo. I missed. Looks like that's a bit more accurate, actually. Let's keep that guy lined up at the edge. All right, so this is the area that you will not be able to walk on, and this is the area you can walk on. And we've just defined our first tile, and that's it. So now we want to go ahead and define, I'm going to just define the four. These guys right here, and that's all we're going to have to work with. So if you have a bunch of tiles, it's a very manual process. You've got to do this a lot, which is annoying. Now the nice thing is there is a bit of a shortcut. Come up here, select your the node you just defined here, and you come on down here, and there's this guy, duplicate selected node, or you can do Control D. And we'll just hit that, and it is now duplicated. We shall turn our snapping back on and move item to... Why are you not... Come on. Alright, let's lock children. There. Alright. I might have been moving one of the child components of it, which is kind of irritating. So now we'll take that guy, duplicate it. Alright, so it automatically inherited the lock. There we go. And then we'll take that guy and duplicate it, and just over here. Alright, so we got our 4 tiles. They're all using the same boundary right now, and they're all using the same graphic, which we obviously don't want. So let's turn those locks all off. No lock, no lock. So that locking just made it so that I can't select the child aspect, so I use the whole thing as a whole, which is handy. All right, so now we've got our second tile, tile number 2. I'm just going to go in here and we're just going to change the region. In this case, we just want to be 32 pixels in, and that's the only change. So now that should do it. Enter. Done. Why did you not update? Tile 2. Alright, that should do it. Tile 3. And this one we want to be 32 pixels down. And this one we want to be 32 and 32. Let's see. God, I wish it selected the top more often. So we just want to switch there and there. Alright, so we now have our top there, 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 and there selected. In theory, in practice, it's not looking like that. I don't know what's going on here, to be honest. Okay. Why are you not drawing? 1 second. Okay, it's just an illusion. It actually looks like it's using the same tile over and over again, but it's not specifically. It's the collision mask over top is throwing things off. And let's go ahead and we'll fix that up now, and it'll become a bit more clear. I also didn't grab as many as I thought I was, which is part of my brain fart. This is actually tile, tile, and then a third tile. So, you know what, I hate to do it, but I should actually grab them too, so it makes sense. So, let me just create 2 more tiles. So, Control D, and we'll just move him. Snapping. Hate that selection stuff. Alright. And children lock, and move. And we will duplicate him one last time. And up. Take the lock off. And take the lock off. Alright. And these guys then are slightly off. So tile 5. Wow, I'm getting really confused myself with that naming convention. Alright, tile 5 is now going to be at, let's see, 32 stays that way. This one becomes 64. Yeah. And then this guy will become just 64 in the X. That's tile 6. Alright. Oh, because I cloned it. Alright, so 64X, 0Y. Okay. Now all we have to do is we have to clean up these collision polygons. And that is a matter of, well, to be honest, pretty much just manual labor. So let's go to our, so the only one we've defined is our first tile. So our second tile now, let's expand it out, collision polygon. And we will just drag these up. Oh, snapping's on. Alright, undo that. Undo. Alright, turn snapping off. I said snapping is wonderful until you forget and leave it on at the worst time. And we're going to want that to overlap with that guy over there. We're creating complex geometry for no reason. All right, so then we move over to our tile. Yeah, okay, this is going to be confusing. 3, we will just bring that guy over here, guy up here, this guy over here. Yeah, that mostly works. Uh, that guy I think we can just delete. Yeah, pretty much. Alright, this guy we're going to drag up here, over here. We'll bring this guy down here, and this guy over here. And then finally this guy, same deal. So once again, we're just defining where you can walk in a particular tile. It's important to get your corners as precise as possible, though, because the overlap is going to cause, if you create gaps, you're going to create oddity in your physics engine calculations. All right, good enough. So there is our tile collision. You can walk here or go here. Anything over here will trigger a collision. That's about it. So that is how you define your tiles. If you don't need the physics, it's a lot easier. You basically just have to give the dimensions or the offset in the region that represent the tile itself. This is the name it's going to be exported as. Tile 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. It's not the greatest naming, but it works for now. So finally, now that you've done this, go ahead and save your scene. I call it tilemap.scene, and done. Now what we want to do is go ahead and go to the convert to option here and say tileset. So convert to tileset. And then it's really just a matter of naming it, and I will call mine, here, we'll go with the lovely name of mytileset.xml, like so. Now, the only thing to really be aware of here is this guy. If you're making changes to it, you want those changes to update into the other, to the existing tileset XML, click this. It's buggy, again. Now, one thing I've noticed is when you change your tileset, shut down and restart Godot. I don't know why, but I have had nothing but problems with the re-import. I've tried doing a refresh. I've tried doing the delete and add. Shutting it down and bringing it back in seems to be the best way to get the changes to persist. Like I said, there are some bugs in this process. Unfortunately, that's one of them. There is no existing, so this isn't really going to do anything, but I'm just going to set that to off anyways. So we're creating a file called mytileset.xml, and done. Now I'm actually going to take the second to actually show you that guy, because this process right here of defining the physics for these guys doesn't always work exactly like you want it to, unfortunately. So let's go to our projects here and go to tilemap 3, and there is our tile set. Now, if it worked, you will have these definitions. These are the geometric definitions of where the boundaries are, and you'll see for each particular tile there is a shape. And then the resource, and that's just, all this is saying is shape 0 in the resources, which is up here, and there's 0. So it's mapping it back up here. But if you don't have these entries, that's probably your problem. And I don't know why. Sometimes export doesn't create them. If you don't define your physics hierarchy right, they won't be created right. And like I said, sometimes it just doesn't work. So it's useful to tell to make sure that these have been defined. But as you can see, we do have all the boundaries we just set have nicely been defined. So let's close that down. And then now what we need to do is create a new scene. All right, don't give me that warning even though I've saved everything. I'm going to save everything just because I'm paranoid. So new scene, yes. And we'll just straight away save this guy. Oh, you can't. All right. Once a root, we'll give it a root. I'll give it a node 2D. So, all right, so there's a root of our new scene, and we'll just come back up here, and we shall now save it. And new scene, sure, it works for me. And since we're here, let's just go ahead and set that to our active project. New scene. All right, and that's it. Perfect. All right, so that is our scenes started. Let's move this guy down to here. Now, the very first thing we do is actually, let me think for 1 second. I'm going to undo that for a second. Oh, I can't. Oh, there we go. All right. So let's just go to our node, and we're going to add another node to it. And this is your key. This is where your tile map is. Keep in mind you can have multiple tile maps. So if you've got layers of them with things like maps on top of maps on top of maps, you use multiple tile maps to do this. In this case, we're going to have just one. We're going to keep it pretty simple. But there you go. There is our tile map created. And you go into the tile map, and let's go back to full screen. Have I done this entire thing not full screen? If so, I apologize. That was kind of stupid of me. We go ahead and we just load in our tile set under the tile set property here. And just pick it. And now you'll see in the editor over here, all of our tiles popped in. Perfect. So now we just can use those to paint. So you grab one. It's automatically sort of set up for you. Oh, I've made a mistake. You also have to set your tile size. So 32 and 32. And your grid will update corresponding. So obviously, whatever tile size you use, you go with. As you can see here, you can set for isometric. We're not covering that today, but if you're not using square tiles, it's set there. But yeah, you set your 32 by 32 up here. The only other value you might want to consider setting is your use kinematic. If you are using physics on your tile map, click that to on. We're going to go ahead and do that today, so I'm turning that on. Now it's really just a matter of you take your tiles like that, and then you paint. And where's my bottom? Did I not get the bottom left corner? Oops. Oh well. Like that. And let's do the top corner. Like that. And now we're going to go down like that. And since I don't actually have this one, I'll go ahead and use this guy, even though it looks like crap. For some reason I did not get the bottom corner guy. And let's fill it with some rocks. And that is painting a level with tiles. It's really quite that simple. You can have, like I said, another layer of tile maps on top, like so. Now I'm just going to go ahead and put this guy, and it's opposite right here. Okay. Kind of ugly, but it works. And that is painting with a tile map. It's really, once you've got your tile map defined, it is really simple. Now let's quickly look at our physics. This is one of those areas where things do get sort of buggy for me. So if this doesn't work out correctly, I apologize. So let's add us a sprite. I guess I'm going to need a graphic for it. Grab 2D graphic, find it. Again, it's on my desktop. I got to stop doing this. Users, mic, desktop, smile, import. Why don't you just default to the root? I don't get that. All right. So imported. Now we'll go ahead and create a sprite like so. We shall give. Oh wait, no. Actually, I don't even want to do that. Let me go ahead and delete him. And go ahead and create a rigid body 2D like so, and then on it we create a sprite like so. That sprite we set to image texture, load, smile. There we go. And then finally let's give it a shape, collision, shape 2D. And the shape is a circle. Size it appropriately-ish. Hey. Come on. And other corner. Good enough for me. Grab the entire guy. Let's lock it down. Drag that there-ish. Alright, so if I've done everything right, this should just work. I don't really have my fingers crossed, mind you, but let's see. And there you go. That's kind of it. Let me actually let's give it a little bounce so that it interacts a little bit better. And go. Boing, boing, boing. Roll, 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 and ball. Boing, 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 boing. Now, this is an area that actually worked today, which is wonderful. But I've had my export come out where they were off by half, and I don't know why. It just falls into the scene a bit more. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know what the problem is. If you actually look at the tile maps, there is an option to be like offset by half. You can change where physics occur relative to. We'll actually take a look at that right now. That might be linked, but I'm not enabling any of that, so it should have never affected me, and for some reason it did. And unfortunately, like I said, it's just kind of buggy. I don't know the answer to it, but you just saw the process of creating a physics-enabled, collision-enabled tile map very quickly, very simply. Now, there's a couple things we should look at really quickly. First off, you've got your layers here. So if you want things to only interact with certain tile layers, sorry, collision layers, they're set here. So things that are only on the same layer as each other. So my rigid body will also have the same properties. It's by using these layers you can determine what hits what. So if you've got things like on different layers of different tile maps and you don't want them to interact with each other, you do that with that guy. Now the next most important thing that we're going to look at here quickly is, so when you click your tile map, it brings your 2D mode into this editor where you can bring in and draw using a palette of the tiles that you've defined. However, sometimes you want to actually modify or create new tiles, and you can do that directly in here. You don't have to go back to the tile map, although the results, again, have been somewhat buggy for me, so I am not sure I recommend that entirely. Here's what I was talking about earlier. You can set it so that your tile origin is about its center, or top left, and then you can do a half offset, which is to say, move your dimensions by a half. So if you're at the center, obviously, instead of the top left, it's going to have a different offset, and that's how you can handle it. It's been a little bit buggy for me, not something I would recommend using too much. So anyways, if you're in your tile map right here, you can drop it down, you can go into Edit. So now we are in the actual tile map itself. You can see up here, it's reusing an editor, the theme editor menu. But if you come into the theme, you can actually add new tiles. And merge back to the scene, create from the scene, etc. So you can create a new tile in your tile set. Now look over here, and this is actually showing you a hierarchy of your tiles. So here's tile 0, which is named tile 1. Okay, a bit confusing. The graphic it uses. So if you wanted to use a different sprite sheet for your source, you could change it here if you wished. The offset. That's probably not something you're going to use very often. The material to use, this is the region we defined. So if we wanted to just move it to a different portion, you could do it right here just by changing these offsets. And then you have these 3 offsets again. Since the top, this is where it gets screwy again. This is all about the top left versus the center. But this is saying 16 by 16 offset, 16 by 16 offset, 16 by 16 offset. And if you play around with this, it all goes really screwy. That's where the source of all the bugs is. Again, it's probably user error. I may not know why it's going wrong, but the second I touch any of this stuff, it all goes foul. So if I decide that I want to use center instead, and I change this to 0, 0, it all goes wrong, completely wrong. So be careful there. And then finally, you can go into the shape itself that is defining the, so in this case, we're doing a convex polygon shape 2D. We could edit that shape, change it up. There's no editor, though. This is kind of frustrating. So I can say, okay, I want to use a line shape or a circle shape or whatever instead. But then I don't have the option of going in and painting. So if you want to update your tile map, generally what you're going to want to do is just reload the tile map scene and export it again. And then, as I said earlier, the most comprehensive thing to do is to actually exit and restart your editor. The Godot itself, that seems to purge whatever. So sometimes I just find that junk is left in there. Like I manually added a tile this way once, and then I got rid of it, or at least tried to get rid of it. And I went and I was looking at the XML file, and it was gone. Everything was gone. The damn thing was gone. But it would just keep showing up in this list, like every single time until I exited, came back in. Then it was finally gone. So if you do run into some kind of a weird persistent bug, just go ahead and exit and come back in, and generally that purges or excises the demons. Okay, so that's basically it. It's actually a pretty straightforward, clean process. It's just a little bit more work intensive than I'd like it to be. I'll do a very, very fast recap. First thing you do is you create a new scene. Let me save this guy. I'll open the old guy back up. Let's see if it's smart. In your new scene, you create tiles. Basically, you create a sprite using the region definition within an overall image, like this sprite sheet we're using. So you basically just give it the coordinates for each tile. Hopefully this is something they can automate in the future. I don't know why this is something that you have to do by hand. Then if you've got physics for your tile, add a static body on top of your tile, and then add a collision polygon to that. You then define the boundaries of it. Now, big warning here, something that I got bit by, I didn't know this. Do not resize, shape, or otherwise mess with the collision body polygon. This outer shape or anything, do not ever scale it, do not do anything to it, or it goes stupid. So when you are defining a collision polygon like this, do it with drawing only. Do not ever use scale. It goes really dumb. Okay, so quick warning there. But basically we just define all of our tiles. Each one is given a unique name, so you basically create a sprite for each one. Name it accordingly. If it needs collisions, you define the static body and then the collision bounding polygon to go along with it. Make sure that you don't have cracks or crevices, or you will cause your physics simulation to go really stupid. And in that case, the snapping is your friend. Configure snap to turn it to 32 by 32 or whatever your actual tile size is. If you're using isometric, you will use these guys to snap accordingly. Now turn it on, you click use snap. You could also turn on a grid if it's to your liking. I'm not a big fan of grids, to be honest, but they can be handy. And then when you are done, you simply go scene and convert it to a tile set. Now with your tile set selected, you create your new scene, like so. Add a tile map node, and then once the tile map node is selected, you will have this palette painting brush with all of your tiles enabled. You then simply draw your level, and that's it. As you saw from this, you can have physical objects within it that will now interact with your tile map, like so. Exciting stuff. That's kind of it. That's the working with tile maps. Now, again, if you have multiple layers, you can create multiple tile maps over top of each other. Collisions are handled using the collision layers thing. So if you have things that collide with one thing but not another, that's there. I guess the only other thing I should point out in this is you can go into your individual tile set and edit it using this guy, brings up that slightly different theme editor. Like I said, the process is a little buggy. If you want to make a lot of edits, I would actually edit with the original and re-export it, myself personally. And then if you want physics, you click the Use Kinematic option to on in the collision, and that's it. That is working with tile maps in Godot. Truth of the matter is, it's just that initial process of defining the coordinates for each tile that's a pain in the ass. And this is one of those things I think gotta be able to say. You should be able to say, all right, make me 36 tiles of 8 wide by 6 wide, like 8 by 6 or whatever. Turn this into tiles for me, and it'll automatically name them. Then you just would have to go through and rename them. That's a nice feature that should be added. Sadly, it's not there yet. So it is a bit of an intensive process to create your tiles, and it's a little bit buggy when you change them. I would also make sure that you open up the exported XML file to make sure that your boundaries are exported correctly. Also, you can, if you look at that file again, let me see, there we go. If you want to make quick edits, this is as easy as it gets. It's a very straightforward, simple format. You're going to want to reload after each change, but you'll see like each one's just named by index, like so. And then it's simple data types defined in XML. So if you wanted to make small changes, so that if you wanted to have a script that created this for you, so you wanted to create, say, that thing that automatically populated tile sets for you, you could easily generate this XML file. Here's your regions being defined. You just define slightly different coordinates. It's one of those things that if you wanted to create your own tool for XML importing, you could pretty simply. This is a very straightforward file format. You should be able to figure it out yourself within minutes of playing with it. So that is also an option. If you've got a lot of tiles you want to deal with and this workflow is too onerous, just create a tool. That is your option as well. That's about it. I hope you enjoyed that. It's definitely creating games with tile maps. It used to be an incredibly popular thing to do back when memory constraints were a really big thing. Now some people are getting into, if there's not a lot of reuse in your tiles, then it doesn't make a lot of sense. But now that we're into mobile, and again, restricted, using tiles allows you to make really large maps really, really large maps using very, very, very little memory. And since they're tiles being blended from the same source, they're also very efficient on the GPU. So even though the world is moving away from tile maps a little bit, in some ways they're starting to move back to them again. So this is a very handy way to create, especially if you're creating like a 2D platformer. This is a nice way to go about things. So again, I hope you found that useful. Thank you very much. Goodbye.